Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again. Please do hit like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and please do consider sharing it with other people. I try to talk about all things enhancing your mindset and the way you live on this channel. So you can't help but think that's a good thing to spread around, I don't think. But today I'm just having a little update on all things Justin Baldoni, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, all the law drama, It Ends With Us, and all of the rest of it. I haven't talked on this for a bit because we've mainly just been seeing all of the back and forth and just the exchanging of different objections to different things, and new filings and filings to dismiss and all of the rest of it. And it's like I said last time, really, it's interesting to kind of witness the different styles with the lawyers and things. And the thing is, what I feel is that the difference in the conduct between the lawyers and the language they're having to use. I mean, for one thing, I do still believe that for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's lawyers, it's often Ryan Reynolds writing that and then leaving the lawyers to have to come up with the cases that they can, cite law from and the rest of it, and just try to make it sound like a legal argument, because it still certainly seems like it's still this campaign of Ryan Reynolds to kind of just belittle Justin Baldoni as much as possible. He's made a decision about Justin Baldoni in his mind for whatever reason, and he is determined not to defer from that. So it's all about winning, basically. Winning against Justin Baldoni. That is the whole thing. It doesn't matter whether Ryan Reynolds truly thinks that he is right or wrong. He just needs to win. Because he cannot handle the prospect of losing, because if he does lose, then it proves that he was wrong, or if it doesn't prove it to him himself, it will certainly prove it to other people, which is a real problem. If you do have narcissistic tendencies, it tends to cause you a real issue. But I think it's really interesting to note the difference in the language and the terminology and all of that, because you see kind of the desperation, I think, in Ryan Reynolds' arguments, legal arguments, and the fact that it has to resort to being personal. Because when you don't have the truth on your side, you have to get creative, you have to be malicious. You're looking for any and all avenues to score points, because you can't win an argument with the truth, really. When somebody has the truth and facts on their side, it causes you to have to be deviant, to have to be smart in your language, to be looking for just making up stuff, basically, in the hopes that some of that mud sticks. And it's at this point, it's not even really about whether it sticks in court, it's whether it sticks in the court of public opinion, really, is the problem. Because it's just like it's what's threatening him now. Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, those people, is the threat to their livelihood. That's really all they're worried about, their world domination plans, because, Ryan Reynolds, God bless him, he seems to be an excellent businessman. He knows to jump from one thing to one thing to one thing to another, and always be looking for the next big opportunity. You can't blame him for that. But it possibly is the manner in which he goes about doing these things that is a problem. And I certainly do think both he and I'm still convinced that he and Blake Lively, you would never know whether you were in a genuine relationship with either one of them, because there's a certain transactional quality to their relationships. I certainly do feel like Hugh Jackman was a very valuable friend for Ryan Reynolds to cultivate back in the day when Hugh was a lot bigger than Ryan. It certainly benefited Ryan to have Hugh become his best buddy. And it's like I said before, if there was no Hugh Jackman, there would have been no Deadpool and Wolverine, because there was no story before Hugh was approached to come on board. Would he fancy doing Wolverine again? That's been said in public, that they were really struggling to come up with the story, and it all made sense when Wolverine was involved. So if there had been no Hugh Jackman, there would have been no massive success of Deadpool and Wolverine, and no opportunity for Ryan Reynolds to mock Justin Baldoni as nice pool, as an aside. And I definitely think that's the thing, that Blake Lively cultivated that relationship with Taylor Swift, and it's still my feeling I'm not saying Taylor had nothing to do with any of this, but I certainly don't think it's on the level that Blake Lively has claimed it is. I'm sure she's chimed in on the odd occasion when she was free, like any friend would when somebody asks you their opinion of something. You know, often as a friend, you're put in that position of chiming in on something and you won't have all the facts, so you just do your best with whatever your friend has told you it's about. You just try to make a decision based off of that. And I think that's my feeling, personal feeling at this point. And you know, I stand to be corrected, but that is my feeling about this, because I think Taylor's probably a bit nonplussed by all of this. I mean, she certainly wouldn't have been impressed by somebody calling her a dragon and all of that after how hard she's worked to get where she is, to be used by another woman as some kinds of power move. You know, when you've earned your own power, when you've built yourself up and done it for yourself, it's not nice to think of the idea of being used by somebody else. But yeah, that is the thing really, why Justin's side and their team can afford to be magnanimous. I mean, it seems like now, like Blake Lively's side are asking for a heck of a lot in terms of information and these things, the interrogatories or whatever it is ahead of the depositions and things. It seems like they're asking for an awful lot of material, which is a big burden on Justin Baldoni's side, but it seems like they're coping with that, although they have asked for a little bit of an extension, which of course Blake Lively's side are saying, no, we don't believe you should have an extension to provide us with all that they need. And the thing is, it does look like, still looks like they're fishing. They're trying desperately to come up with something that supports their case, because there is no evidence, there are no hard facts, there's nothing whatsoever to support Blake Lively's arguments of sexual harassment or of a smear campaign. So they're desperately fishing by asking for, you know, broad spectrum of stuff. So that just shows you that they're really, really struggling. So they get progressively nastier and nastier and nastier, and trying to poke more holes with every piece of paperwork that comes out, whereas Justin's side can afford to be more magnanimous because they know they have the truth on the side. They're not worried about what might be exposed by what they have to provide to the opposition party. They're just trying to go about the jobs in the best way possible. I'm not saying that they're blameless, flawless as a law agency. You know, there's a certain amount of trickery, I guess, involved in being a lawyer. But I think you certainly get the picture that there's a certain feeling of relaxation from their side as such, because they know there's very little chance of, you know, anything, a significant hole being poked in their case. So they're just kind of holding the ground. I mean, they do use the odd bit of funny language. It was very funny the other day when it was talking about the supposed invisible, non-traceable smear campaign, and Brian Friedman very cleverly said that in order to find that evidence, basically she really only needed, she didn't need discovery, Blake Lively, she just needed a mirror, because that's essentially what has happened. It is just that her own actions have tripped her up, and that is the thing with narcissists. And what any kind of expert on narcissism will always tell you is that they do trip themselves up. You don't need to tackle a narcissist. You just really need to step away and allow them to detonate themselves, really, because that is what does happen. You can never win with a narcissist. You have to let them get themselves in a knot, basically, because they're not happy people. They're not people that are ever going to feel fulfilled in life. They're here to kind of show us something in life, you know, to say, my feeling still with all of this is that there's lessons to be learned, such as don't believe everything that the media tells you. Certainly don't believe everything that politicians tell you. It's about making your own mind up. And it's also about living your life from a place of love and truth. Because look at Justin Baldoni. He's just off in Hawaii, just getting about his own life as best he can. And what we need to remember as well, that's really important, is that Justin Baldoni would not have done anything to do with any of this. He was letting it all slide. It was going away. The only reason Justin Baldoni is in a lawsuit with Blake Lively right now is because she accused him of sexual harassment, and that is something that his livelihood and his ability to make a living could not withstand. So he was placed in a position of having to fight. If she hadn't have done that, none of this would have happened. So it is a case of, this is what happens when you live your life from a place of ego and lies and having to win and having to score points. This is what happens to you, that you get yourself in an awful knot, because sooner or later you will be hit by the truth and you won't be able to get yourself out of it with the means that you've used in the past. So basically, Justin Baldoni is just stepping back. He's doing exactly what he should be doing. He's just stepping back. He's allowing the lawyers to handle it. You know, he's nurturing his family. He's living his life peacefully. He's not commenting. He doesn't seem to be asking anybody to act on his behalf and put out stories that are positive. There's just no stories coming up about him whatsoever, just the occasional picture from him in Hawaii. There's no stories around what he is doing or not doing. He's basically just out living his life. And that is the thing, that it's the perfect strategy, really, because just the more that Blake and Ryan press this, the more their personalities are being shown for what they are, you know, and they've set off down that course now and there's no reversing. It may still get to the point where they will settle, or they will want to settle. But the problem they're going to meet is that unless there is a sincere apology for, at the very least, the sexual harassment aspect of it, and really the aspect of him having lost his representation, his agent, you know, Justin Baldoni can't really afford to settle, and that will be very problematic for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, because they will not want to apologise. They will not want to admit that they have done anything wrong. She certainly will not want to acknowledge that she falsely accused him of something as heinous as sexual harassment, and that he accused him of being a sexual predator and spread that around. I fail to see so far a time when either of them will be able to admit that and apologise for that. So it may well go as far as court. I imagine they're very much, whether they'll admit it to themselves, I do very much believe they're probably regretting a lot of what has happened, because it certainly caused them a lot of pain and a lot of hardship and a lot of discomfort, and sitting with some feelings they'd probably rather not sit with. But that is the problem when you live your life, as I said, from a place of ego and having to be right and having to have your opinion be right, and trying to coerce other people and trying to score points off of other people, and mocking and humiliating and sarcasm. You know, they're not great life skills to have. It's not a way to run your life. And I just think it is an amazing thing. You know, we really should look at this as a bigger picture, because I look at kind of Justin Baldoni and I know nothing about the guy. But can you imagine the faith and the self-love and the trust that you need to have in order to be able to withstand this that he's being put through? For him not to be kind of acting out in more ways, and not to be acting in a similar way to Blake and Ryan, he has to have an awful lot of love inside, and he has to have a very strong faith, because it is a real test. So I think it's very important to look at it and look at what humility truly is, you know, that even in the face of all of this, that you can rise above and that you can go about your life. And, you know, just remember that back during the promotion of that movie, when they had ostracized him, everybody had ostracized him, he wasn't even really being mentioned by name in anything to do with any actor's words on that movie. He was ostracized from his own premiere and put in the basement. And even during all of that time, he had not a bad word to say about anyone. He was only loving and supportive. He bigged up Blake Lively, you know, he praised her. You know, there's those text messages that say that he doesn't want any kind of things being spread around that would be harmful or detrimental to her, because A, he didn't want to do that, and B, it would only harm the movie. It would make absolutely no sense for him to be smearing her. It was truly her own actions that got her into trouble. It benefited him none to kind of get in some kind of smear campaign battle with Blake Lively. How would that have ever benefited his company and his movie? It wouldn't. And it would have harmed his future projects and all of that. So you imagine what kind of man Justin Baldoni has to have been to have taken all that abuse throughout that production and all those slurs on his character, and having that movie taken off him and having to surrender bit by bit by bit by bit to blackmail and coercion, basically extortion, and still be able to rise above and not be openly criticising, not wanting to harm anybody, just being able to be there in Hawaii and just allowing it to play out, knowing that nothing he can do or say really will change anything, that he has to just be there, sit in his truth, act with honour and with dignity, and trust that it will all play out and that there'll be a right outcome. And that is what it is to have faith and trust and to live your life from a perspective of love. And none of that is what Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds do. And I think that's the real problem for them. Why there's this big disdain for Justin Baldoni is they cannot understand somebody who can live their life like that. It's a real threat to them, because when you hold up a mirror to your relationship like that, you imagine Blake's thing really seemed to be, she seemed to kind of really take an offence at how Justin and his wife were, because it threatened what she knew about her relationship with her husband. What do you mean you can just stare in each other's eyes for long minutes at a time? Ryan and I have to be talking, joking, you know, back and forth. There's never enough time in the day to talk. Where's the feeling? Where's the feeling? Where's the genuine intimacy? Where's the connection that comes from just looking at each other? You know, if you want to, go look at Married at First Sight or whatever. What's one of the exercises they have those couples do to establish intimacy is to do that eye gazing task. You know, if you can't look into your partner's eyes and just hold silence, there is an issue. You know, so I think that there's all kind of aspects going on in this movie, and a big part of it is that they are threatened just by Justin Baldoni just being himself, because it threatens what a narcissist knows about themselves. And in effect, I believe that's what Ryan and Blake are, but they're just different kinds of narcissists. I believe that Blake's is a very much a self-conscious, self-aware, low self-esteem type of narcissism. I mean, you only have to listen to her interviews where she doesn't stop talking, because if she stopped talking and allowed somebody the space to ask a good question, then she comes unstuck, really, because she's not really got the intelligence and the self-esteem to back it up. She can only waffle. I mean, I'd never really watched Blake Lively's interviews before this. I find them really hard to watch now, because I just think, God, take a pause, woman, you know, let somebody else have a word. But I think it's that thing, it's driven by low self-esteem. You know, it comes across as confidence, somebody chattering away like that, but it's really just verbal diarrhea, isn't it, really? You know, it's nothing real. And that's the thing. That's why this case to me is so important, and it's not about celebrity and status and pop culture, really. It's God giving us, if you want to believe in God, this huge mirror to say, look at what's real and what's not real, and what you should be aspiring to be. You know, truth, love, faith, all of those kinds of things. And on the opposite side, you've got shallowness, money, status, power. You know, what is it you're doing to each other? That, to me, is the message that's coming through. And what are you doing to yourself? You know, it's like this case has been so interesting, how it's drawn together different political sides and such as that. And it has called into question the media and what we believe. And all of these are important things that we should be looking at as a race. and as spiritual beings having this human experience and witnessing what we do to each other and how different things could be when we allowed for love and we allowed for trust and we allowed for faith instead of all of this ego related stuff like fame, like power, like maliciousness, weaponization, getting your own way, sarcasm, all of these kinds of things, poking holes in other people. You know, that is the big lesson to me, is how are you going to live your life? You want to change the world, it doesn't change by more nastiness, more poking holes, more fighting, more arguing, more discord. That is not how the world changes. The world changes when you extend love to people and give them hope and give them a bit of faith in something else being available to them. And that's part of my work as a rapid transformational therapy practitioner too. So you can always book a free call with me if you want to discuss rapid transformational therapy and changing your life by changing your ability to love and to love yourself and to solve issues like lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth. You can book that free call with me at charmedlifetherapy.co.uk/call, and there's always free resources in all of my videos if you check out the description. And please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and I will be back with you soon. Thank you for watching to the end if you're still here, because that does make a difference, and I just appreciate you all very much. Thank you. See you later. Bye bye.